wake up to Bill Flynn in the morning.
He doesn't mow his lawn. He just stands there and dares his grass to grow.
Good morning. It is the Love Your Lawn Hour this morning. Our friends at GrowinGreen are in the house, and specifically that's Tommy Cowett.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tommy, who came with his own book today. And the book is entitled Tall Fescue Establishment as Influenced by Cultivar and Seeding Rate. Did I read that correctly?
That's exactly right, cultivar.
And you're going to have to explain to me what cultivar is at some point on the show. But it's interesting to me who wrote this thesis, this book form thesis, and it is none other than Thomas Cowett, who's sitting right here. Tommy, good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
What an accomplishment. So I do want to get to this, but I've got to jump in a couple things in front of it, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Because the great thing about a book, it's on the shelf. It's always there for you.
Sure, there's one you can check it out. It's in NC State Library.
Is it still there?
Yes,
Good.
It's there.
Which, by the way, maybe the worst of all possible worlds would be if you checked out your own book and you kept it out and you didn't take it back and you had to pay the fine for holding on to your own book. I mean, can you imagine anything worse?
Man, I can't think of an analogy on that. That's awful.
That's awful. Don't let that happen.
Yeah, you own a rental car business and you
yes.
get to return it and because it's yours.
Or you went over mileage, or you didn't clean it, or there's a dent in it. Anyway, first thing you got to know. Well, let me open up our phone lines. Because, folks, if you have a question about your lawn, how things are going, what you need to be doing now, maybe you have an unusual problem that has cropped up in your lawn, either in the grass or in the areas where you find some shrubbery or trees, a great chance to run that by and get a quick expert opinion about that. It's all free, and the phone number is 896-1980, 896-1980 is our phone number, and you can talk to Tommy Cowett, our expert when it comes to lawn and lawn care. First thing is, I have been in the house that I'm in now. We moved in April of 1999, so I'm full-blown 16 years
Good long time
into this house.
Get to know property, and you've mowed it yourself the whole time.
I do, yeah. I'm the lawn boy the whole time. So I know a lot about, where the dips and the valleys and the hills and, where it grows well or where it doesn't. Since GrowinGreen has been doing my lawn, in 16 years, my lawn has never looked as good, as thick, as healthy, as green, as happy, as all those adjectives as it does right now that you guys have been working on it since about a year ago or thereabouts, whenever it's been.
Yeah, it's been a little over a year, and
Okay.
I'm glad to hear that.
But
That's what we
and when
strive to do.
Let me tell you what I'm seeing. The grass is healthy. It's thick. It's wiped out a lot of the weed areas because I know where the weeds like to go, and I'm seeing less of that. It's not perfect, but man, the thing about it is frustrating at this point is that little patch of imperfection, which was a huge patch, which was most of the lawn, frankly, at some point along the way. I'm going to have to, do that. But it's such a small little area. And, I feel like, I'm running a marathon here, which is maybe a way to think about what we do at GrowinGreen. And I can see the finish line. I can almost taste it from here of having that lawn that people want to come out and walk through and take pictures of.
Nice.
And that kind of thing. So thank you for that.
You're very
I'm excited
welcome. That's
about
what we strive to do.
I was out there yesterday. I did the trimming and the weeding, and then there's no weeding. I'm just doing the trimming on the edges, and the blower, and of course the bagger on the mower, and it's just pristine.
And it's even fun and a pleasure to pull up every day and look at it, and you're just so proud of your lawn. And
I don't know how many times I've cut this grass, and I'm looking at it saying, it's even more fun to cut it when it looks like this. I mean, it looks like a strip out of a magazine on perfect lawns or something. And
you've reached LYL.
LYL, what's that?
Love your lawn.
I have.
LYL, baby. You're there.
I'm glassy-eyed. I'm inviting people over. Hey, look at this. But anyway, thank you, and it's a great testament to the work that you at GrowinGreen have been doing now for over a year.
That's what we try to strive for.
So thank you.
Get you to reach LYL. and it will remain that way. It's biologically fed. This is a lawn that doesn't go through a lot of peaks and valleys. It will just cruise.
Now, I do have a question. Somebody said, Bill, I know GrowinGreen's doing this, but you may want to add a last-minute treatment of blank, blank, blank. And this came from somebody that knows a lot about lawns, and I said, well, thank you, and I appreciate the thought. My concern would be, you guys have a regimen.
Oh, yeah. We're coming back.
And if I do something, and I forget to tell you about it, or if I do something that actually may reverse some of the great work that you've done, thinking I'm helping. So talk about that a little bit.
I will. Hey, the guys, they're very particular about the lawns that they service. We don't have a lot of different turnover on a lawn. The guys are with us, 19 full-time employees here in GrowinGreen, and our technicians are all trained, and they have their routes, and they have those lawns that they take care of, and they get to know them. And they can sometimes sense when somebody's doing something behind their back or in between their treatment. And
the homeowner may think, hey, I'm doing a great help here. This is going to make it even better. But what is the problem
we've
you
seen
can run
it
into?
turn the other way, yeah. We've seen where somebody's come in and done something in between and actually caused some damage. Say they put down some type of synthetic fertilizer that was not appropriate, wasn't applied at the right time of year, or wasn't applied appropriately, or
I got this leftover stuff, and I'm cleaning it out of the garage. I'm throwing it over here.
Hey, what's happened to my lawn? Well, you're looking at it, I don't recall that area looking like that. It's not consistent with anything else. Did you do something here?
What did you do?
What did you do is
Here's the Google satellite. We captured you out there 3 days ago dropping this bag of stuff on the lawn.
It's hard to say, but, that's popped up a lot of times. Yeah.
So,
it's your property. Right. We have no right to say you can't do that.
But the point is, GrowinGreen, you guys have studied, as we're going to talk about your book here, this is what you do. You know what needs to be done and when, and if that homeowner...
Leave it to the professionals. You can watch some of our videos, the Sprigumentary, for instance, with the athletic fields, where we did a lot of sprigging, and we were going to high schools and fixing all these athletic fields, and people laying sod without properly laying sod and creating hazards. Things like that. It's all kinds of different, things that
and this
people
is all
can do to destroy a lawn or a field.
And you've seen this for years and years and years.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, if you, the lesson
we've talked about it. The Indian gentleman over in High Point who dumped the 10-10-10 at about, half-inch depth all over his field, all over his front lawn.
Is that the one that looked like it had snowed
It looked like it snowed,
or something?
Yes, and it was dead, and he's worried about his neighbor's weeds.
All right, tell you, we're going to take a short break and come back with the Love Your Lawn Hour and Tommy Cowett of GrowinGreen. And if you have a question for our expert this morning, 896-1980. Maybe you want to bounce an idea off of them. Now would be a great time.
Call now. The number is 896-1980. AM 980, The Eagle.
Good morning. I'm thinking here with the Love Your Lawn Hour and that moment in Jurassic Park where the dinosaurs are plucking the top of the trees for food.
Mm-hmm.
You could make that tree even healthier with what you know, Tommy Cowett, and thereby improve the life of the dinosaur worthy here today.
The Tyrannosaurus, those big bird
the
ones.
The Brontosaurus with a big long neck. And,
those guys, the Brontosaurs.
And of course, the
pterodactyls.
That's what you're talking about,
those
the flyers.
Birds, get them to fly up in there and trim.
Now, I don't know if they land in trees. We'll have to investigate that. That's a whole nother discussion. But
in the movies,
one thing that's happening right now, and I think it's certainly worthy of a few moments from you, because we talk about grass and lawns, and we also talk a lot about trees and how that's really it's a micro ecosystem in everybody's lawn. That mixture of the plant variety, the shade, the sun, the atmosphere, the soil makeup, all of that. And there's early defoliation. I know that you've had some calls about that. Talk to me about early defoliation. Are you seeing that, and what does that tell you about the health of a tree or the season or whatever?
Well, it's usually, on, say, cherries, especially the Yoshino, the large ones. Boy, they usually just naturally will drop their leaves quite a bit earlier than other trees. I mean, they're usually defoliating now, or probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, they would have started to drop their leaves. Well, this year they went down in July, and people were calling, "What's wrong with my Yoshinos?" There's nothing wrong with them. It was just probably the over 40 days of 90-plus degrees, and they don't like it here. They probably should be grown in a cooler environment. Probably a better region would be more like up in New England, or they do well in D.C., but they still drop their leaves early, the Yoshino, that one variety. That's varietal. Then you've got, like, say, oaks or hickories. Yesterday I went to a gentleman's home who had a suspected oak wilt. Well, he didn't know what it was, and really the tree was actually a hickory tree. And when I got there, lo and behold, it had not completely defoliated. It was still alive. If it was oak wilt, it would have been completely dead. The leaves would have all been either brown and still on the tree, wilted out, and completely brown, because they usually will go brown and dry up within a day or two.
Does it recover from that, or is that a death sentence?
That's a death sentence. That's like a vapor lock, and it can happen to trees because of the vascular system. It's a vascular disease where it's clogged. Goes into a vapor lock, usually in August, and it's not coming back. Now, sometimes you can revive them with a fungicidal injection and try to clean out that vascular system and get it working again. So sometimes if it's like a century oak or a tree that's, a really important tree to the landscape, it's worth doing the treatment, because these treatments, just one treatment, can cost upwards, $1,000.
But GrowinGreen can do these
depending on the size of the tree. Yes,
but you can do these.
We are ArborJet certified to do those injections. And, it's a specialty treatment that we'll do, but I was called out yesterday to look at a potential oak wilt. It wasn't. It was environmental. This gentleman had built a retaining wall around this large tree and in a wooded area, and backfilled that retaining wall with soil. And he buried the root system on that side of the tree 3 or 4 feet. So that completely was abandoned.
Does that suffocate the root system?
Yes, it did. It completely lost, over time, completely lost that whole side of the root system. That tree was gone. So now that tree's just relying on everything else it's got. Well, the other problem was competition from other scrub trees in this wooded area. I'm talking maples and girdling this tree, in fact. Maples and dogwoods and little oaks, red oaks, and some ash trees that were all like
they're all competing for the same water
right
source,
around, yes,
and for the same sunlight.
Right, and this tree had not completely, not wilted out completely. It still was hanging on to a few leaves. So that told me, hey, this tree's fine. It has just defoliated, jettisoned its leaves to try to compensate for that heat it went through, plus the competition and the lack of a good, healthy root system. So the recommendation to him was, look, a fertilization is definitely in order here. Doesn't need the injection. And it's not a fungus. This is not that. This is more of an environmental stress that you put on it
when you
because you put it in a pot. And a tree that size does not want to be in a pot.
Right.
you know.
So the is that tree going to be able to recover and build some new roots closer to the surface? And is that
my
what will
recommendation was to remove the scrub trees from around that tree. You know, get rid of that, and maybe even do a basal stump treatment with Roundup to kill those little. These are scrub trees. Some of them were even girdled by vines. So, you know, we're not talking about the healthiest environment there for a tree in the first place. But clean it up. Make this tree's environment a lot better. It's a beautiful tree. The structure of the tree was gorgeous. And he needed to prune this stuff away from it to show off that tree. It was beautiful. So,
to see the beauty of a tree, and especially so often now in neighborhoods that trees are few and far between, and when you have one, maybe you've planted and watched it grow for a few years. There's a relationship there.
Oh, you definitely have a relationship with your trees. They're talking to you.
They are.
And I don't know about that dream you told me about last night.
Do you want me to tell you that?
bizarre.
Okay, here's what happened. I had a bizarre dream. Maybe you can do a dream analysis from.
Hey, maybe some caller could call in. And
what does it mean?
what does this mean?
Okay, there was a patch of water or wet area, and for some reason there was a large tree that I knew needed water, and it had a very large, 8-10 inches in diameter, supple root above ground, almost like a fat fire hose, that I put the root. This is a dream now. I put the root in the water source, the tip of it, and I went back and I could actually feel the tree
Sucking up the water.
Yeah, the surging of the water going back into the tree.
Trees really do suck.
Well,
Not in a bad way.
I
Good
don't-
way.
I don't know that this is analyzable or whatever you would say, but it was bizarre. Very strange.
You're connected.
I was feeling very environmental, I guess, at the time. We're going to take a short break and come back with more Love Your Lawn Hour. Tommy Cowett is our guest with Growing Green. The website is GrowinGreen.com. And we're going to talk about literally the book that Tommy has written on the kinds of things that will make your lawn even better. Coming up next on The Eagle.
Call now. The number is 896-1980. AM 980, The Eagle.
Good morning. We continue with the Love Your Lawn Hour and Tommy Cowett of Growing Green, growinggreen.com, the website, 1-866-LAWN-HELP. If you'd like to call directly to find out what Growing Green is up to and how they can enhance the living things around you other than your pets. And that's a good point. Anytime you guys do an application, you're very aware that a lot of your customers have pets. They want them to be enjoying the outdoors, enjoying the work that you're putting in to make the yard prettier. And you're very aware of the sensitivities to products, right?
Absolutely. Now, that brings up the Stop Pure Bites program. We do a mosquito tick control program, fleas as well. And that is part of our, it's a good sustainable approach to protecting your family and your pets from these harsh bites that you get from all these critters that want to attack us and our pets.
Yep.
But the products we're using are very safe for animals, humans,
Well,
plants.
if you look at the literature that you published, the photographs, there is a relatively famous dog that is associated now with a lot of your materials.
Sure, that's Clover. Yep.
Yeah.
And Clover's blog is kind of a famous blog that Jonathan does a lot of writing on, and it's part of the website, the overall package when you come visit growinggreen.com. And
Clover's just a rescue dog that
she
has
was a
found
rescue
a home.
dog. Yeah, it showed up at John's house one day. She's been trained now by professional trainers, and she's just a great dog.
And she'll also show up at some of the public shows that you do
Yep.
at the garden centers.
Trade shows,
Yeah, whatever.
absolutely. Paul Senior Botanical, when we're out and about doing trade shows and that, she comes. She has an appropriate name, Little Clover. She's just cute as can
She's a
be.
sweetheart. You and I were talking. I must tell you, I'm fascinated by the depth of knowledge you bring to the show and your ability to talk intelligently and memorably about things. You told me two things about trees that I'd never, ever heard of. And this is something having to do with the tree's ability to absorb water. You mind telling that story?
Right. Dr. Jay Stipes, he's a famous plant pathologist from Virginia Tech who actually spent a lot of time in Amsterdam on the canals saving the elm trees from Dutch elm disease through injections.
If you're saving the Dutch elms in Amsterdam, you're doing ground zero kind of work.
He's been all over the world really doing this type of work with injecting trees.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing he shows when he's coming out and doing demonstrations and things like that or workshops is he'll just get a whip or get somebody to hold a whip of the tree down, just a branch, pull it down. It could be anywhere from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, whatever, little whip. Don't cut it down, just pull it down so it's still connected to the tree. He'll take a wide pocket knife like a buck knife and put a large droplet of water on it so everybody can see it, and just push it slightly into the bark of the tree. Or really, at that point, a whip like that doesn't have much bark. It's just, the outside of the tree, of the bark, the young bark, and just sucks it right up, like quickly. And that's why I like to say trees suck. They truly do. It's like,
wow.
Just sucks it right up quickly as that.
Just like somebody with a straw.
Just like somebody with a straw. And
wow.
That's a real great show of how much kinetic energy is in these trees, and how much water is actually moving about in the tree and up from the roots up into the tree, and in all different directions. I mean,
that is fascinating.
These trees have an affinity for water. They're absorbing it.
I didn't know the branches
leaves.
Themselves, the whip, as you point out,
Absolutely.
It would be able to absorb water that effectively. Given
Right,
the chance.
when we do a organics drench on trees with the biostimulant, try to save them from various problems, we try to soak the trunk, and that really helps. You'll definitely get some absorption through the trunk of the tree, and just kind of give it a
really
nice
like
bath.
The whole tree is like a sponge.
It's really
not
sucking
just
it up.
the root system.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. The other thing you told me about, and for anybody that's done some tree grooming on their own, where you get some limbs that are kind of getting out of hand or covering up too much of your grass, you want to cut them back. You had some really interesting points about how a tree deals with that wound, how a tree immediately deals with the wound that you've made.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this thing called CODIT, C-O-D-I-T, which is compartmentalization of decay in trees. This was studied and written about by Alex Shigo, a world-famous, world-renowned arborist, forester. He really knew a lot about trees. And what that means is when you cut a tree immediately with a chainsaw or a saw or any kind, before you even get through that branch has already compartmentalized the decay that may happen later. In other words, it's walled off any possibility of invasion from foreign objects or viruses or bacteria, fungi getting into the wound. The wound is completely compartmentalized.
So nature is already taking care of making sure that
Dressing
exposed side of the fresh wood is now instantaneously prepared as a firewall against the stuff that would otherwise come in.
Exactly, and that's the parenchyma, the sclerenchyma, all that, the different types of fibers that are in the tree. Wall off, done. And so, you really don't need to paint it with tree dressing. That makes us feel good that we did a nice little job and dressed the wound.
Put a Band-Aid on it, it's going to be fine.
Put a Band-Aid on it. You can look back and go, yeah, I took care of that tree. I feel so good. I hurt that tree when I cut that branch, so I put some Neosporin on it.
But if you just leave the tree to nature, go ahead and prune that limb, but let the tree handle it its way, you're better off.
You're better off.
I guess there are some things that people easily may put on a tree that could actually be toxic to the tree if it gets absorbed.
Boy, I would hate to think, they're like, well, I don't have any tree wound dressing.
Here, I'll put
I
this
think
on.
I'll use some of this shoe polish.
Yeah.
Next
Well, that's
thing
how how stuff happens, I think.
Might kill it, yeah. Who knows?
All right. Well, that's a fascinating touch. I want to talk a little bit in this segment and the next about a book I'm holding. And the book is written by none other than Tommy Cowett, our guest. And it has to do with tall fescue establishment as influenced by cultivar and seeding rate. And this was, in fact, your master's degree thesis
right,
for North Carolina State University. By the way, this has been signed off as a document, as one that is well-researched and holds up well by 4 different PhDs. I mean, that's got to be relatively intimidating in the Department of Crop Science in Raleigh. Anyway, we're going to get to this discussion. What's in here that actually may help your lawn right now? Things that you need to know about coming up on AM 980 The Eagle.
Call now. The number is 896-1980. AM 980 The Eagle.
Good morning. We continue with the Love Your Lawn Hour, and we have with us this morning Tommy Cowett from GrowinGreen, and I want to thank GrowinGreen for their sponsorship and support of this really great information we get every week on how to improve your lawn to the point where you can really start loving it, maybe, and using it more and more than you ever found yourself. In my case, I've been at the house for about 16 years, and I mentioned at the top of the show that since the work of Growing Green in the last little over a year, I don't remember my lawn ever looking this healthy, this green, and I want to thank you guys. Your
You're
guys
very
on
welcome.
Kevin, the technician, came out, was helping me out. And,
Yes.
and does a great job.
And he's achieved LYL. Love your lawn.
He has. He's
with
helped me
you.
get there. I'd like to talk a little bit too about the work you did as a graduate student in agronomy at North Carolina State University, and you've actually had to literally write a book, a thesis to get your master's degree. There are 4 PhDs that had to review your work by peer review to say, yeah, you did the right thing here. And interestingly enough, you were just telling me there's a reference you have in this thesis that applies to right here and right now, and it even goes back all the way to the 1940s. Tell me about that.
Sure. Well, there wasn't a lot of work done even or published that was done about seeding dates or seeding rates with tall fescue.
At the time that you did this in early 90s.
That's right. So I had to do a lot of, research to find out, what was already known about this particular issue here, there was a problem. And when you do a master's degree, they usually would like you to select a master's thesis topic that will solve a problem. Mm-hmm. I mean, because, look, you're paid a stipend, you're there, you're teaching, you're a research assistant, you're doing your class work and everything like that, working your butt off,
Do something to help us.
Yeah, let's make this productive. I mean, it's not like I guess, we always hear about these other master's degrees and doctorates in liberal studies don't always pay off.
Right.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? It's not useful information that we can take out into the field and use it now.
But that's where this is different, because this is
actually
applicable.
Useful information about seeding rates, seeding dates, that type of thing. That's what this is. And you asked earlier, what is a cultivar? Mm-hmm. Well, that's just a fancy name or scientific name for a variety, like Falcon, or people have heard of Titan, people have heard of Rebel. Mm-hmm. They haven't heard much about Barabusta or Bavaria or Barrington like we use with the Barenbrug seeds, which are the best in the world, but because Big Box doesn't sell that good stuff.
And by the way, it really, really does show up and make a huge difference.
Sure, those are selected out of knowledge of the good stuff that we use at GrowinGreen. We use the best money can buy, and it doesn't fail. And you're seeing the results, and you've reached LYL, and we're real pleased with that. And we're getting a lot of other people who love their lawn as well. But yes, it was going back to 1946, showed that between August and October, end of October is the best time to seed a tall fescue lawn from Michigan. So I take that and extrapolate it down here into the South, or mid-Atlantic, where we grow a lot of tall fescue here in North Carolina, and we're still in the window. Now we're going to start getting frost, and that's coming pretty soon, probably. Usually first frost comes around the end of October in this area.
Now, what happens to a young grass plant at that first frost? Is there anything that's dynamic that's going on that changes everything?
It might definitely harden it off, and it loves it. I mean, it's a cool season grass where the optimum temperature for that grass is anywhere between, say, 85 degrees Fahrenheit down to, it can handle freezing temperatures, of course. It's not going to die. But, I mean, it's optimum down in the 70s. 60s, 70s, maybe even the 50s. Loves that during the day, That's pretty good temperature swing as we get, further on into the cooler months. We'll have lower high temperatures and then cold daytime,
now, when
nighttime
when that really cold window hits, that first frost, and you really start seeing maybe even a shock to the plant a little bit, does it shock the plant
not
when
really.
It gets that cold?
No, not really.
Does it tell the plant, okay, it's time to focus on building the root
Roots.
system?
It probably triggers it to do more roots, and I'm sure there's been studies. I mean, there's definitely been studies on root growth and temperature. I didn't focus on that. I focused on a particular issue with the newer varieties of tall fescue that were coming out and just didn't seem to establish well. And why is that? And how can we overcome this slow establishment? How do we deal with these newer varieties, these new cultivars that were coming out, which we use a lot of at GrowinGreen right now?
Now, in the research you did on these varieties of grasses, these tall fescues, were you surprised by anything?
Yes, definitely. Most people said, okay, well, just put more seed out.
Sure.
You'll get
Throw out
better
more
results.
seed, baby, yeah.
Well, sure, early on you're going to see a lot more growth, quicker establishment. You'll reach that perfect 10 in the plots quicker. But you've crowded. Now you've got a crowded situation, and it's going to thin itself out with disease. It's going to get to an optimum. And we go at just about the median in between. We're right there where we need to be when it comes to seeding rate, where we're gonna create a perfect population, perfect seed bed, put the right amount of seed out, and then you're not going to have these mistakes. So
well, and the efficiency that you're talking about, and the precision that you're talking about is largely the success that you see with the GrowinGreen lawns, I'm supposing.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's not just haphazardly done. I mean, it's all been calibrated, thought through, and selected the right grass seed, no weeds. This is just going to work.
Now, another thing, since you originally wrote this thesis, this report in 1993, I think was the published date, the technology and the additional varieties of seed that have come on the market now. I mean, it's ongoing education for you, isn't it?
Back in those days, there wasn't a lot of the dwarf tall fescue being used, just because people were like, well, I don't know how to use that. I'm a K31 guy. I just throw out this K31, it comes up in concrete. But it's awful. It's terrible looking. It's wide blade. It doesn't look very good. Mm-hmm. Newer varieties were being available, but people didn't know how to get it to look like they did out at the research stations. We'd go to the field days and go, wow, that's beautiful. Boy, I can't do that. How does he do that?
How do you translate that success
into
over here where
lawn?
I really want it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now it's available. And, also a lot of the things we're employing, like soil amendments, are available with GrowinGreen. If you need to repair it like we did the Miramichi in your front yard earlier on, or if you need calcite clay, if you need a lime a Solucal type application, you need something additional for your soil to improve the soil. Compost, we have the McGill, and we can do areas. This all helps improve your soil because we're building soil. At the end of the day, the program's designed to build the soil and grow the plant from the roots up. And that's what we're doing at GrowinGreen.
You mentioned something about that variety of grass that will grow on it'll grow on the driveway. It's so prolific. And in our last moment here, the analogy I think of is as men get older, a lot of times we have the ability to grow hair where we really don't want it.
Yep.
And right now, because of the success of the weather we've had, the cool temperatures, a lot of rain since a lot of seeding has happened for folks, whether it was through you or they did it themselves, we may actually be seeing grass growing in places we really didn't intend for it to grow.
It happens.
Now, tell me what the remedy is for that. I mean, it's a wonderful problem to have.
It's a great problem to have. Don't get, if it's really in an area where grass does not want to grow, like limited sunshine, as leaves drop, you're going to have a lot more light. Plant's going to make it. You can have grass growing, in a gravel parking lot. And it's crazy, but it's not going to persist through the summer. Usually, and I tell everybody, everything we do from September 1st through the end of May is all designed to get you through June, July, and August. Now, what happens in some of these areas where you're going to enjoy grass for the next 6-8 months? It's gonna survive. In these areas, go ahead and seed it. It's temporary though.
Okay.
Because it really has to have that 6 hours of sunlight. It's got to have it. We'll identify these areas for you when you work with us at GrowinGreen, and maybe there's alternatives to turf, to grass for the permanent, but you can actually do it on a, temporary basis, which is 6 months out of the year is not too temporary. That's half.
Well answered. Tommy Cowett, Growing Green, the website growinggreen.com, 1-866-LAWN-HELP.
Now I've got